Uh, we'll start with the 7 realities. Ashok, you want to start?
Yeah, Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai, the 7 realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following. 1. The only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. 2. Only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. 3. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. 4. The only real renunciation is that which abandons in the midst of worldly duties all selfish thoughts and desires. 5. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, or try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. 6. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. 7. Only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.
Avtar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thank you so much. So let us continue the journey of discourses. We are in the last two themes. We should be done with yoga soon. And then we have meditation after that. So, talking of where we are exactly, are going to take up task for spiritual workers, followed by qualifications of the aspirant, and that comes in 4 parts. So, what are we going to learn in
Karthik, your
task?
voice is breaking. Is it for only for me or others as well? I don't
Can someone else confirm if my voice has a problem?
It's clear for me.
It's clear for me also.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for the
Uh,
confirmation. So, maybe it's your device, Praveen. Oh, he jumped off. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just read out the essence of the chapter. Be torchbearers for humanity. I think it's only your side, Praveen. Be
Sorry.
so I'm reading out the essence. Be torchbearers for humanity. Nature of spiritual work. Origin of manyness. States of consciousness. God realization. Importance of time. Task for spiritual workers. Win people to life of truth. Hints for spiritual workers. Overcoming obstacles and results of spiritual work. So that is the subtopics here. Shaker, would you like to be involved in the reading today sometime? Well, some part of the reading anytime. Feel
Yeah,
free to
sure, sure.
jump. Yeah, feel free to jump in with your thoughts or questions anytime. So you
Yeah,
can
Baba.
also, yeah, okay, good. So let's start with, yeah, maybe first 15-20 minutes, Praveen can read. Yeah, Praveen, are you there? Okay, I'm going to read the first 15 minutes. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
Karthik,
Yeah,
sorry, I had a disturbance here again. Call got disconnected. I'm fine to read it. I'm start. I'm fine to start.
yeah, yeah, okay. Anyway, I'll read the first 15 minutes and I'll give it to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
sure,
The
sure.
task for spiritual workers: be torchbearers for humanity. I'm very happy that in response to my call, you have gathered to receive my message to you. On the path, the most important condition of discipleship is readiness to work for the spiritual cause of bringing humanity closer and closer to the realization of God. I am glad to note that through faith and love for me, you have wholeheartedly offered yourselves to share in my universal work of spiritualizing the world. I have full confidence that you will not only inherit for yourselves the truth that I bring, but also become enthusiastic and valiant torchbearers for humanity, which is enveloped in deep ignorance. Nature of spiritual work. Because of its supreme importance for the true and final well being of humanity, spiritual work has a natural and imperative claim on all who love humanity. It is therefore very necessary to be quite clear about its nature. The whole world is firmly established in the false idea of separateness, and being caught up in the illusion of duality, it is subject to all the complexities of duality. Spiritual workers have to redeem the world from the throes of imagined duality by bringing home to it the truth of the unity of all life. The next topic is origin of manyness. The cause of the illusion of manyness is that the soul, in its ignorance, identifies itself with its bodies. The gross, subtle, and mental bodies are all mediums for experiencing through the ego mind the different states of the world of duality. But they cannot be the mediums for knowing the true nature of the soul, which is above them all. By identifying with the bodies, the soul gets caught up in the ignorance of manyness. The soul, in all the bodies with the ego mind, is really one undivided existence. However, as it gets mixed up with these bodies and the ego mind, which are only its vehicles, it considers it considers itself as limited, and it looks upon itself as being only one among the many of creation, instead of looking upon itself as the only one reality without a second. So just to take a pause, first, it's one of Baba's messages. So he's introducing the topic, and then he's actually talking about spiritual work here. But this is straight the distinction between material life and spiritual life. So it's not yet about work; it's more about what is spirituality. And the second topic is the idea of the true values or the concept of using the ego mind and thinking in the illusory world to be real, right? Then it's states of consciousness. Sorry. Every soul is eternally and inviolably one with one undivided and indivisible universal soul, which is the soul reality. Yet, false identification with the bodies and the ego mind creates the illusion of manyness and of differentiation within the whole. The bodies, with the ego mind, are only the mediums or the vehicles of consciousness, and as the soul experiences the different inner planes through its different mediums or vehicles, it goes through different states of consciousness. Most souls are unconscious of their true nature as God. No, the subtopic first is God realization. Most souls are unconscious of their true nature as God, who is the unity and the reality of all souls. God realization is latent in them since it has not yet become to be experienced consciously. Those who have cast off the veil of duality experience the soul through itself independently of any mediums or vehicles. In this experience, the soul consciously knows itself as being identical with God. Life, in the truth of the unity of all, brings with it freedom from all limitations and sufferings. It is the self affirmation of the infinite as infinite. In this state of spiritual freedom and perfection, the ego life is finally and completely surrendered in order to experience and release the divine life in the truth. And God is known and affirmed as the only reality worth living for. Importance of time. To realize God is to dwell in eternity. It is a timeless experience. But spiritual work must be done for the souls who are caught up in the mazes of creation, which is bound by time. Spiritual workers cannot afford to ignore the element of time in creation. To ignore time would be to ignore the spiritual work itself. It is imperative to be discriminatingly aware of the flow of time in creation and to appreciate fully the supreme importance of the moment in the future that shall witness the universal dispensation of the truth of spiritual wisdom. So, in spirituality, we don't generally worry about time. But Baba says time is important for spiritual workers because we need to be aware of the flow of time in creation and to appreciate fully the supreme importance of the moment in the future that shall witness the universal dispensation of the truth of spiritual wisdom, manifestation, understanding our true nature and the whole world coming to know about it, right? So now he gets to the topic task for spiritual workers. Please feel free to comment or bring up any discussion points anytime. The task for spiritual workers is to help me in this universal dispensation of the truth to suffering humanity. You have not only to prepare humanity to receive this truth, but also to get established in it yourself. It is extremely important to remember that you can help others to gain spiritual freedom and to come out of the illusion of duality only if you yourself do not forget this idea of unity while working for others who are inclined to create divisions where they do not exist and who thus allow no respite to spiritual workers. The minds of people have to be completely purged of all forms of selfishness and narrowness if they are to inherit the life in eternity that I bring. It is by no means an easy task to persuade people to give up their selfishness and narrowness. It is not by accident that people are divided into the rich and the poor, the pampered and the neglected, the rulers and the ruled, the leaders and the masses, the oppressors and the oppressed, the high and the low, the winners of laurels and the recipients of ignominy. These differences have been created and sustained by those who, through their spiritual ignorance, are attached to them and who are so settled in perverse thinking and feeling that they are not even conscious of their perversity. They are accustomed to look upon life as divided into inviolable compartments, and they are unwilling to give up their separative attitude. When you launch upon your spiritual work, you will be entering into a field of divisions that people desperately cling to and that they accentuate and strive to perpetuate consciously or unconsciously. So, even in the spiritual working role, we are constantly faced with people who will be underlining these differences, underlining their identity uh, of materialism, which is where they are coming from. And it is upon us to watch out for it and also constantly not get misled by it every minute. Every minute they're going to be presenting these ideas, underlining these ideas all the time.
Karthik, I have a small doubt here. By this word spiritual workers, does it mean that every Baba lover or anyone who chooses to pass his message?
Very good question. In fact, I am thinking about this from the first line of this um, part, this chapter. The
Probably
reason
we might
is
get an
the
answer
first.
during the question.
Can you
Please
repeat
go.
what you said?
Please go. Probably we might get an answer as we go through the chapter. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I
Just
think so
asking.
too. I think so too, but I'll tell you my comments. So the first,
Please.
in fact, right up to the point that you come here, right? It is not really about workers. Baba is only talking about the difference between materialism and spiritualism, right? So there is nothing about the definition of what is a spiritual worker. But
Mhm.
in the first paragraph, it is very clear that it is a message not to a seeker or a lover, but to a worker. And in the last paragraph that we read till now, it's clearly subtitled workers. And here he points out that the worker is faced with others who could be lovers and non lovers who are in different stages of leading their life, many of them in materialism alone. And how to deal with them is what he's talking about, right? So,
Yes.
I think that's
Yes.
that's my
I got
reading,
the message. I got
right?
the
But then
message.
we'll understand more down. So I think it
Yes.
is people. It is to do with workers, but it is targeting. I mean, the first part of it is very general.
Yeah.
Okay,
So let's
win
proceed.
people to the life of truth. Mere condemnation of these divisions will not enable you to destroy them. The divisions are being nourished by separated thinking and feeling, which can yield only to the touch of love and understanding. You have to win people to the life of truth. You cannot coerce them into spirituality. It is not enough that you should have unimpaired friendliness and untarnished goodwill in your own hearts. If you are to succeed in your work, you have to bring home to them the faith and the conviction that you are helping them to redeem themselves from bondage and suffering and to realize the highest to which they are rightful heirs. There is no other way to help them attain spiritual freedom and enlightenment. For rendering spiritual help, you should have a clear understanding of the following 4 points. It's prescriptive. Point number one, apparent descent to a lower level. Under that, there's also a subtopic, hints for spiritual workers. It may often be necessary for you to apparently descend to the lower level of those whom you are trying to help. Though your purpose is to raise people to higher levels of consciousness, they might fail to profit by what you say if you do not talk in terms they understand. What you convey to them through your thoughts and feelings should not go over their heads. They are bound to miss the point unless you adapt it to their capacity and experience. However, it is equally important to remember that while doing this, you should not actually lose your own high level of understanding. You will change your approach and technique as they gradually arrive at deeper and deeper understanding, and your apparent descent to the lower level will be only temporary. Spiritual understanding ensures all sided progress. You must not divide life into departments and then begin to deal with each department separately and exclusively. Departmentalized thinking is often an obstacle to integral vision. Thus, if you divide life into politics, education, morality, material advancement, science, art, religion, mysticism, and culture, and then think exclusively of only one of these aspects, the solutions that you bring to life can neither be satisfactory nor final. But if you succeed in awakening spiritual inspiration and understanding, progress in all these spheres of life is bound to follow automatically. You will have to aim at providing, as spiritual workers, a complete and real solution for all the individual and social problems of life. So, first point, get down to their level, take them from the known to the unknown. Second point, ensure that everything is uh, combined and interlinked, and hence don't look at each aspect of life in as a silo, and look at them already as a whole, as interlinked and interdependent. Number three, spiritual progress consists in the spontaneous growth of understanding from within. As spiritual workers, you have also to remember that the spiritual wisdom you desire to convey to others is already latent in them, and that you have only to be instrumental in unveiling that spiritual wisdom. Spiritual progress is not a process of accumulating from without, it is a process of unfoldment from within. A beautiful line here. Spiritual progress is not a process of accumulating from without, it is a process of unfoldment from within. All are equal, all have it latent in them. Our role is nothing. Our role is only to help them discover that. And they have to do their own hard work. Don't forget. Anyway, coming further, a perfect master is absolutely necessary for anyone to arrive at self knowledge, but the true significance of the help given by the master consists in the fact that he enables others to come into the full possession of their own latent possibilities. Some questions are more important than answers. You, as spiritual workers, must not lose sight of the real work the master desires to get done through you. When it is clearly understood that spiritual wisdom is latent in all, you will no longer be anxious to provide others with ready made answers and solutions. In many cases, you will be content to set up for others a new problem or to clarify for others the nature of the problems they face. You may have done your duty if you ask them a question that they would not ask of themselves when placed in some practical situation. In some cases, you will have done your duty if you succeed in putting them in a searching and questioning attitude so that they themselves begin to understand and tackle their problems along more fruitful and creative lines. To give them a deeper point of view or to suggest to them a fruitful line of thought and action may itself mean much more than thrusting upon them the results of your judgment. The questions that you may help them formulate for themselves should neither be merely theoretical nor unnecessarily complicated. If they are simple, straight, and fundamental, these questions will answer themselves, and people will find their own solutions. You will have rendered indispensable and valuable service to them because without your tactful intervention, They would not have arrived at the solution of their multifarious problems from the spiritual point of view. So leave it to them. Let them figure it out. Just give hints, open some questions, uh, tease them into thinking about aspects that will make them uncover the position that you would like to present to them rather than just be prescriptive. The big benefit in that is also that we are not telling them what has to be done. Who are we? We are no one, right? And I think that's important. Overcoming obstacles is the next subtopic. It has been seen that spiritual workers must necessarily be confronted with many obstacles, but obstacles are meant to be overcome. Even if some of them seem to be insuperable, you have to do your best to help others irrespective of results or consequences. Obstacles and their overcoming, success and failure are all illusions within the infinite domain of unity. Your task is already done when it is performed wholeheartedly. If you are steadfast and one pointed in your desire to help my cause of awakening humanity to the sole reality and the ultimate worthwhileness of God and God alone, you will get many opportunities for spiritual work. There is ample scope for work in this field. Results of spiritual work. You must do your work without worrying about consequences, irrespective of success or failure, but be confident that the result of work done in this spirit and with this understanding is assured. Through the untiring activities of spiritual workers, humanity shall be initiated into a new life of abiding peace and dynamic harmony, unconquerable faith and unfading bliss, immortal sweetness and incorruptible purity, creative love and infinite understanding. So now I have the question: who is a spiritual worker?
The answer that can be the I cannot give the exact answer, but answer that can be brought out is one who has understood and digested Baba and his messages and is living the way that he has asked us to live, like following all his principles, and has like that you're following Baba completely, 100%, and then you have taken a stance of passing on the message of Baba to others.
So that sounds to me
Not just
like
a
a
lover.
lover.
Yeah, yeah. The first
So,
qualification that a spiritual worker should have is a lover. That he should be a lover.
okay, so what more
It's
should
one
he
of the
have?
qualifications.
So what more should we have? So agreed with you, agree with you.
Yeah.
So if you can't be a lover, how can you be a worker? So we know the
Yes, that's
high
true.
bar that Baba has set for the lover. It's not easy to be a lover, right? You have to be qualified and you have to perform those functions as one is expected to do. My question is, what else does one need to do to be a worker? Anybody else?
So,
Kama, what do you think?
Yeah, Baba. Yeah, I think that the way spiritual worker can be defined as someone who understands what is material freedom and what is spiritual freedom. Number one. Number two is somebody who understands the universal laws of nature, which, if a human being is defined as matter of matter and spirit, we are all spiritual beings in a human body, then he understands the laws of matter and the laws of spirit and understands the correlationship between them so that he can balance out both the inner and outer aspects. And the spiritual worker is also on the path. And so, by his own example, he's showing others, you know, the, the execution aspect. Of course, we are all different We have different sanskaras. We are at different degrees of consciousness. So we are at different levels as per the material school system, kindergarten, high school, bachelor's, master's, and so on. So each spiritual worker will be at different levels. So the only thing one can say is that the spiritual worker is following these universal laws of nature, whether he's following an operating system or the whole religious operating system is basically based on the absolute truths. So so that's it. I think it's just providing an example of himself, and so people get inspired and follow that. Jai Baba.
So in effect, it's almost every lover, right? So all that you said is should be there with a lover, and the only extra thing is he's also trying to help others on the way.
Well, he doesn't have to be a Baba lover. He just has to be a lover of truth. Somebody who's interested in self-actualization, self-realization, and as
Now we are again
you read,
getting into slippery territory. So no, no.
sorry,
I mean, we are getting into slippery territory if you're saying you don't have to be a lover. I think that
what is a lover?
anybody who
What lover of life?
has
There is nothing like, I don't think. I think this personalization of Baba is an individual thing. Okay, not
no, no, no.
everybody is. Uh,
That's a given. But we are coming at it as people who are looking at what Baba has written about what is loving him. So if we are trying to be on the spiritual path, and if you are trying to be
oh,
a lover of, I mean,
okay.
I wouldn't even say Baba lover
Following a
in that
perfect
sense.
master. Let's call it a perfect
Correct.
master.
Yeah.
Any perfect master.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So
Correct.
that you already know the seven awakenings. Follow the seven awakenings. How to love
That's
God,
it.
the seven realities,
Yeah.
and so on. It's all about relationships. What is love? Love in the waking state is about relationships by the individual aspirant with the outside and the inside. How you deal with the animate world and the inanimate world, and then you go to sleep, and that's it. So the seven awakenings gives you the whole checklist: how to love God, how to be a spiritual person, and so on. I think that is like the Ten Commandments or the Buddha's Eightfold Path. I think Baba has not said anything different. The only thing I know is these two chapters have been a good framework for Baba lovers once they have finished with their material freedom and then they want to do something with their spiritual aspect, how to be a spiritual worker.
Get started.
The task
Yeah.
of, yeah. So that is how I look at it with these two chapters. Is it gives you a framework as a Baba follower, it applies to everybody, even a non-Baba follower, because it's very common sense, it's very practical, and it has no proselytization basically. So it gives you a beautiful framework if somebody wants to know, hey, how am I going? Now I finished with my material life. I've reached my Maslow's hierarchy. Now I want to self-realize. So this one is a good framework, the two chapters. Okay, Baba.
Agreed. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? So we can then go to the next one. So this is a four-part series. So let's just quickly read the next parts, subtopics. Oops. Are there no subtopics? Yeah, it's not updated for some reason. Okay. So let's go straight and read it in the inline. Value and limitations of external conformity, realities of inner life, limitations of conventions, freedom from convention due to critical thought, discrimination between true and false, bankruptcy of barren beliefs, dogmas and creeds, Dogmas and creeds are often harmful. Need for putting theory into practice. Critical and creative thinking balances mind and heart. And what I missed telling you is the name of the part. Like you have a part one, entering into the realities of inner life. Praveen, why don't you go ahead and read this part? Yeah, are you in a position to do that?
Yes, yeah, now I'm at
Yeah, please.
qualification, qualifications of the aspirant. Part 1, entering into the realities of inner life. Though realization of the truth is the ultimate destiny of all persons, there are very few who have, sorry, I think I missed the subtopic, value and limitations of external conformity. So I'm starting again. Though realization of the truth is the ultimate destiny of all persons, there are very few who have the necessary preparation for the early fulfillment of this glorious destiny. The mind of the worldly individual is darkened by a thick layer of accumulated sanskaras, which must be considerably weakened for the aspirant even to enter the spiritual path. The usual method for gradually dissipating the load of sanskaras is to follow as strictly as possible the external code of religious rituals and ceremonies. This stage of external conformity to religious injunctions or traditions is known as the pursuit of Shariat or Karma Kanda. It covers actions like offering daily prayers, visiting holy places, performing scriptures, and observing well-established rules of ethical codes generally accepted by the moral consciousness of the times. The stage of external conformity is useful in its own way as a spiritual discipline, but it is by no means free from evil effects. For it not only tends to make one dry, rigid, and mechanical, but it often nourishes some kind of subtle egoism. However, most persons are attracted to the life of external conformity because they find it the easiest way of placating their uneasy consciences.
The last slide is very interesting, right? So why do we like religion? Because it's a way of comfort. Because we are uneasy with the reality. We know something is odd in our understanding of real values, and we derive comfort in some structure, and that structure happens to be Sharia. So that happens to be religion. That happens to be karma kanda, right? Because others are also doing it. So it's a beautiful line to end this topic. Yeah, Mahu, you were saying something.
Yes,
Karthik, I
it is
have,
very
yeah, Karthik, I want to add a comment.
Sure.
In addition to what you say, when a soul incarnates into a family, I mean, and they choose their own family and brother, sister, and whatnot, but we're not going to go there. That family already has they following a religion, right? So they raise with those standards and values, and at the point they don't know any better, so they start practicing rituals, ceremonies, and participating in functions and so forth. And like you said, it's easy, it becomes their comfort zone. And it's part of the ignorance that we all have or have had regarding the religion. And for this, Baba says something very beautiful. He says, what is a spirituality? A spirituality is to unlearn what we have learned and open your mind to accept new stuff. So I'm paraphrasing, but um, it's exactly that. It's for people. That's why Baba is doing all this universal work right now, and there are quarrel and there are a lot going on, for people between people with different belief, because they of course they're going to get into dogma and all that, but they develop dogma, they become one-sided, they don't see any better than what they've learned and so forth, and they don't know what is critical thinking. They don't know how to think of themselves and begin to explore what is beyond religion. So sometimes it happened for them objectively and sometimes subjectively. And if they don't know still, they don't become awakened, then God and his perfect masters and agents have to do what they're doing right now for people to become awake. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think the other word that I can think of is it's also a matter of identity, right? So what you are in the initial days of your, especially like you said, you just belong to a family and then you grow up with there. One of the identities is what religion you belong to. And depending on the social structure you hail from, especially if you're from the East, that becomes a core part of your identity. Whereas in the West, there is lesser importance given to that because people are seen more universally, right? Whereas in the East, one of the identities of the happens to be the religion itself. The uneasy consciences leading one to the comfort of Sharia is a beautiful way of uh, relegating religion to its deserved position in life, which is what I wanted to underline. Yeah. Praveen, were you also trying to
But it
comment
just
something?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I was trying to comment that this see we give importance to the material world, and
Hmm.
we do all our acts in the way that our mind, or we can say the ego mind, tends us to do. And then with the spiritual, what you call the religious ceremonies, which have been developed as a really good part of, is a really good way to towards God when they were actually being developed, when they were actually being preached. What we are doing is we are taking the comfort of the mind, like we are taking the comfort, the ego mind is taking the comfort itself through through the religious ceremonies by saying that I am doing this and I'm also doing the work of God. So indirectly, the ego mind is also identifying uh, the ego in the ceremonies, like it is identifying the ceremonies
Yes.
also not through its heart, through its mind. So we're actually indirectly the when you do the ceremonies without heart, you're actually indirectly you can say you're not actually worshiping the God. Actually, you're worshiping your ego mind. Another way of saying it. So,
Yeah.
so actually you're taking comfort within that ceremonies. So ceremonies has to be done with heart, as Baba always said. If you are doing it, do it with your heart. They're good. Uh, all the religions have preached the good sermons. They're really good for your path, but they have to be done with your heart. Because only then your love is expressed towards God. Otherwise, you're expressing your love towards again, or your consciousness is towards ego mind. As Kama always said, that use your viveka, what you call intelligence, so that your consciousness or chaitanya is towards God, not towards material world. Very good phrase, I think.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. I think the other thing that I think I've come across Baba saying is religion or code of karma kanda is from a point of fear of non-compliance and fear of regular compliance, right? It's not coming from a point of love, and that's the problem, which is
Correct.
what you made as well.
Yes. Actually, there is no love. You're right.
Uh,
And that,
Yeah.
that, that is really important.
well, Baba,
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
um,
Kama.
yeah, what in this particular chapter and what I've understood in my own life, see, being in kindergarten is like doing karma kanda, playing with toys and doing all that. because there is a process to all the spiritual path, in the sense that we have all these different yogas, head, heart, hands, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, karma yoga. That comes later when we have the grace of a perfect master. Coming to my own example, and you can identify with it because you're from South India. I come from a very orthodox family, the Kanchi Kamakoti Peedam, where we have so many rituals, so many festivals, and so many ablutions that you need to do on a daily basis. And what happens is most people gets, I wouldn't say get stuck in it, they get comfortable in that and they lead a good life, no doubt about it. For me, I'm not saying I was a rebel, I just didn't feel connected with it. And I said there has to be something more than just rituals, karma kanda. Then when I went to college and I read all the books, then slowly I realized that there is through knowledge you can do, which we call adhyatma kanda, which is going from the outer to the inner. So, which is what I think Baba has also said in the chapter on meditation. Not everybody can go to impersonal meditation, and I also believe in the 80-20 rule of nature, universal laws of nature. That 80% are more tuned towards bhakti yoga, the herd mentality. You follow the teacher and just surrender. Whereas the 20% probably are into jnana yoga or a fusion of both bhakti yoga and jnana yoga. So I had to go through my own spiritual shopping, reading all the different masters, Ramana Maharshi, Ramakrishna, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Meher Baba. And then it took me like from 96 to 2009, I was on an intellectual, connect with Baba. Then Baba turned the key. So my point here is that for any spiritual aspirant, I think there is, of course, one is our pre-birth plan. The way we have, based on our reincarnation, we know that we have a certain big picture in terms of where we are born, what kind of religion we are born into, and then what happens to us. And then later on, to be able to, at least for us, I'm only talking about myself, that it was a big relief for me because I was looking for a spiritual mentor. I call him a life coach, and Baba came into my life, but it was a long test. I had almost given up. So now I feel that reading Baba's literature, I can go through the Adhyatma Kanda aspect. So Baba also said that very few people can go from personal meditation to impersonal meditation. You can't just jump to impersonal meditation because the formless, the Nirguna Nirakara aspect. And so I think for most people, the personal meditation is very important, whether it's focused on the avatar or a living perfect master. Jai Baba.
Wonderful. Sure. I think Praveen, you wanted to take a
Yeah,
option to.
yes.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Shekhar, are you in a position to read now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Um, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Realities of
Thank you so
inner
much,
life.
Praveen. Praveen works on Sundays. He's in Oman. I didn't realize that. I would have let him read earlier, so he may have to drop off in a few minutes. So he opted out. Yeah. Go ahead, Shekhar. Shekhar is from Dubai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Realities of inner life. The soul of often spends several lives in gathering the lessons of external conformity. But there always comes a time when it tires of external conformity and becomes more interested in the realities of the inner life. When a worldly person takes to this higher kind of search, he might be said to have become an aspirant, like the insect that passes on through metamorphosis to the next stage of existence. The aspirant transcends the phase of external conformity, Sharia or karma kanda, and enters upon the path of spiritual emancipation known as tarikat or adhyatma marga. In this higher pace, the aspirant is no longer satisfied by external conformity with certain rules, but wants to acquire those qualifications that would make his inner life spiritually beautiful.
Beautiful.
From the standpoint, sorry, I missed this headline, limitation of conventions. From the standpoint of the realities of inner life, the life external conformity may often be spiritually barren, and a life that deviates from such rigid conformity may often be spiritually rich. In speaking conformity with established conventions and
In seeking,
form,
in seeking conformity. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, in seeking conformity with established conventions of formality, one is almost always prone to slip into life of false or illusory value rather than a life based upon true and lasting values. What is conventionally recognized need not always be spiritually sound. On the contrary, many conventions express and embody illusory value since they have come into existence as a result of working of average minds that are spiritually ignorant. Illusory values are most conventional because they grow into that matrix of mentality which is most common. This does not mean that convention necessary embody nothing but illusory values.
So, what is being said here is that conventions, I mean, the whole idea of moving from the outer life to the inner life is done through a process of self discovery that everybody goes through, and in that there is the many conventions express and embody illusory values. So even though they are these karma kandas and conventions that one accepts, they still represent material values or values that are not real. But then there is a value to it. There is a process. You have to go through kindergarten, then go to first standard, then second standard, then all the way up to doctorate, right? So there is a process, and you have to do it. Yeah, let's continue.
Freedom from convention due to critical thought. Sometimes people stick to unconventional things for no other reason than that they are out of the ordinary. The unusual nature of their pursuit to or interest enables them to feel their separateness and difference from others and to take delight in it. Unconventional things also often uh, generate interest merely through their novelty in contra- contrast with those that are conventional. The illusory values of the usual become i- insipid through familiarity, and the mind then has a tendency to transfer the illusion of the value those things that are not usual instead of trying to discover true and lasting values. Transcending the stage of external conformity does not imply a merely mechanical and truthless change from convention.
Thoughtless.
Sorry, thoughtless change from conventionality to unconventionality. Such change would be essentially in the nature of reaction and could in no way contribute towards a life of freedom and truth. The freedom from conventionality that appears in the life of the aspirant is not due to any uncritical reaction, but it is due to the exercise of critical thought. Those who would transcend the stage of external conformity and enter into the life of inner reality must develop the capacity to distinguish between false and true values, irrespective of conventionality or unconventionality. The rise from Shariat Karmakanda to Tariqat Adhyatma Marga
Yoga,
is not
I have a
only
question here before this
yeah,
subtopic.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Go ahead.
the question here is that the question out here is, how do you distinguish between the false and true values? How do you get this knowledge? And what is required here? Does it mean that you just follow the book? You need a perfect master, or is it a combo? How does one deal with this challenge? Hey, Baba.
If you ask me, it is a whole process, right? It's a system. You have to use a framework of choice, a master and his messages, and first assume something, then discover that true value, and then sustain and live in that process of that true value. Because first it's just an academic understanding, then you bring it into sporadic periods of acceptance, then you live that truth, live that true value, and live it all the time, right? So it's a process, and in that extent you use a structure that you get attracted towards based on your sanskaras, and obviously there is a role of a master in that. That's my personal opinion. That's how you
I
discover
have a
values.
comment to make in regard to the question Kamu asked.
Sure.
Uh, See, this is an avataric time. This is not an abstract, just, we can't talk really in generality or abstract. This is a very, very special time. This is an avataric period where everything is been blooming, flourishing. And the conscious, when Baba dropped his body in 1969, all the kingdoms, is, including humans, were pushed. Baba pushed everyone, one or depends on their side. They push them forward. Okay, so every and having said that, everybody's journey in life is a let's define life. What is life? Life is a journey of consciousness. Okay, which in divine thing you go through the consciousness go through the all the evolution and reincarnation and that all that, the process of the divine thing, that all consciousness goes through, from being a stone to metal to the all that. Okay, so we get to the human level, and then at human level, it's not one life, it's not two life. I mean, Boa talks about 8,400,000 lifetime just for us to get to a place where we get to know the avatar, we get to know him. So it's a growth of consciousness, okay? That's what surrounds us. But then when it comes to the individual journey, right? I can talk a little bit about myself, is that my journey was, first of all, when Baba had dropped his body in 1969, the spiritual pushed me out of my religion, which I was a pure Muslim girl doing everything I can with hijab and salat, 5 times salat and fasting and wala. Okay, done. 1969, that would push helped me when I'm going back and reviewing. But then I was in the world and I got education and higher education and material life and house and car, not one car, several cars, that. Why did I have that? I was in a search of happiness. Whatever that I was gaining wasn't giving me the happiness that I was looking for. In a way, I was looking for that happiness externally. That Baba here talks about conformity. All this conformity of to hold the illusion that I was living in. So obviously, I wouldn't get that inner happiness, inner joy that I was looking for. And it continued on where at the peak of my material life, I fell down on my knees and I said, what is this? Is this what life is all about? Waking up, going to work, making all money, doing this, doing that, eating, sleeping, taking shower? There's got to be more than that. So every night that I was going to bed, I was asking God. And the question came, what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? God, why am I here? Why am I here? And that kept continuing. For some reason, I was on hold for a while. He just wanted me to surrender more and more. And uh, so finally, you know, I got what you call it, baptized, or I got ready to meet the master. But when you meet the master, you don't meet the master. Master meets you. It's his call. Any master that you're in touch, perfect master, avatar, doesn't matter. It's their call. They call you, they draw you in. That's it. I mean, that's how it goes. Now, every life could be different, but eventually our consciousness explore more and more and begin to have a taste of inner life a little bit. And then the master appears and life goes up. Debo.
That's each one has its own, each soul in each lifetime has their own way of getting to the path. And I dare say not all of them would also get to the path. But the 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 journey is literally personal and customized or individualized, literally, right? So does that answer your question, Kama?
Yeah, kind of,
Or do you
about the
have any
avataric
summary?
cycle. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think as far as the avataric cycle is concerned, not everybody knows about the avataric cycle. We are a few 0.01%, probably about a million people who are probably aware of Baba, and maybe the 80-20 rule applies here, who is really in the RBC and the BBC. But coming to the point about the need of the perfect master for you, I think the way I would rephrase it, when the spiritual aspirant is ready, the master appears. What I have read is,
correct.
of course, the teacher comes when the student is ready. The perfect masters, they are all waiting for the aspirant to be ready. So it's not that they need us, we need them so that they can help us. So the important thing out here is we have to do our thing and be ready for receiving the grace. So, and then the perfect master will use you as a medium to do his work. That is my understanding. Okay, Baba.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah. Discrimination between true and false. The rise from Sharia, Karmakanda to Tarikat, Adnyatma Marga is not to be
Marga, Adhyatma Marga.
Adhyatma Marga. Sorry, is not to be interpreted. Therefore, as being merely a departure from external conformity, it is not a change from conventionality to syncracy from the
Idiosyncrasy,
usual
correct?
uh, from the usual to the unusual. It is change from a life thoughtless acceptance of established traditions to a mode of being that is based upon thoughtful appreciation of the difference between the important and the unimportant. It is a chance from a state of implicit ignorance to a state of critical thoughtfulness at the stage of mere external conformity. The spiritual ignorance of an individual is often so complete that he does not even realize that he is ignorant. But when the person is being awaked and enters the path, he is being by realizing the need for true light. In the initial stage,
Begins
the
by he
oh
begins by
sorry,
realizing the need for true light
uh, in the
in the
initial stage in the initial stages of the effort to attain this light takes the form of intellectual discrimination between the lasting and the transitory, the true and the false, the real and the unreal, the important and the unimportant. For the uh, bankruptcy of barren beliefs. For the spiritual aspirant, however, it is not enough to exercise merely intellectual discrimination between the false and the true. Thought intellectual discrimination is undoubtedly the basis for all further preparation. It yields its fruit only when newly perceived values are brought into relation with practical life. From the spiritual viewpoint, what matters is not theory but practice. The ideas, beliefs, opinions, views, or doctrines that a person might hold intellectually constitute a spiritual superficial layers of human personality. Very often someone believes in one thing and does exactly the opposite. The bankruptcy of barren beliefs is all the more uh, pitiable
pitiable.
because pitiable because the person who feed upon them often suffers from the delusion uh, that he is spiritually advanced when in truth he has not even begun spiritual life.
And Jay
Baba
Baba,
underlines.
yeah, I
Yeah, go
just
ahead, Kama.
so I think that we have read earlier about Vivek and Vairagya, you know, discrimination and detachment. And in another chapter in Discourses, I remember the term that was used was creative and critical discrimination, CCD. So critical discrimination doesn't have to be just, but it has to be creative in a sense. And I think Vivek, which is basically intellectual discrimination, or CCD, creative critical discrimination, leads to intelligent action, right knowledge. And again, action here, we see one is the theory part, which we know, which we have to know the right knowledge. But right knowledge, which is 1% theory, has to be put into right action of thoughts, words, and deeds. So again, the Thomas Edison principle: 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So for us, Baba is the inspiration in terms of giving us this creative critical discrimination by reading discourses and God speaks and all the other literature and getting the framework. But the real work is up to us, because you can get caught up in the planes of involution, which is what is happening to the so-called Babas, which we know in India, and which is where Baba always emphasized, go veiled. You don't have to experience any of these planes. And so I think that this particular paragraph is very powerful in terms of also talking about the delusion that one can have, that one is self-realized, kind of thing. Jai Baba.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are down to the last 20 minutes. So, Ashok, if you're in a position to read, you can take over from here if you're okay. Ashok. Okay, I think he's not available. Shekhar, you can continue if you're
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Dogmas and creeds, sometimes even a wrong view which is held with favor, may indirectly invite an experience that opens the gates to spiritual life. Even at a stage of Shariat or Karmakanda, allegiance to religion is not frequently a source of inspiration for many selfless and noble acts. For while the dogmas or creeds are blindly accepted, they are often held with a fervor and enthusiasm that supply a dynamic element to the ideology that has been accepted by the person for the moment. Dogmas and creeds, as compared with barren views and doctrines, have the distinct advantage of being embraced not only by the intellect but also by the heart. They cover and affect a wider part of the personality than purely theoretically opinions. Dogmas and creeds generally, however, dogmas and creeds often harmful. Dogmas and creeds generally, however, are as much as uh, a source of evil as of good, because in them the guiding vision is clouded owing to degeneration or suspension of critical thinking. If elegance to creed and dogmas has sometimes been good for the individual or the community to which he belongs, it has more often done harm. So the mind and the heart are involved in elegance to dogmas and creeds. Both function in such cases under the serious handicap of suspension of critical thought. Hence, dogmas and creeds do not contribute to unmixed good. When a person
Jai Baba.
Okay,
gives
hold
up,
on,
Yeah,
hold
Jai
on, hold
Baba.
on, hold on, hold on.
Hold
Yeah,
on. After paragraph, please
yeah,
hold on.
yeah.
I think the perfect example here about dogmas and creeds and the serious handicap of suspension of critical thought is happening in our current time period. The religious,
Mm-hmm.
so-called religious economic war that is going on, right? So if you look at the Russian Ukraine war, it's more like a economic and dominating aspect. Whereas when you look at the Israel Palestine thing, the underlying basic thing is a
Religious.
religious war, basically. So here we
Mm-hmm.
can see, and this is not something that's happening only in this century. This has been going on for eons. The suspension of critical thought and also this politics of, lust, greed, and anger, both in your material life and spiritual life, is a common theme, irrespective of which cycle, the Satya Yuga, the Draupadi Yuga, Treta Yuga, or Kali Yuga. So that is why the avatar comes every 700 to 1400 years, because of the spiritual entropy that happens in the divine theme, right? So we are very lucky in the sense that Baba is still available to us in his nirguna nirakar form, the formless attributeless aspect. But I think this particular paragraph really clearly explains why all this trauma that is going on in the world. Hey, Baba.
Yeah. So what's an example of a dogma and a creed? Right. So two examples you cited are interesting. The religious dogma-driven war, an economic dogma-driven war, and so on. So, but break it down to a personal dogma, a personal creed. How does that work? Can we explore a example of that? What's a
That's a good
dogma and
question. I
creed?
think I think you
Yeah.
can do a chat GPT on that. Yeah, no, rather than breaking our brains. But yes.
By the
So
way,
dogma, yeah,
I think we have to be super careful using ChatGPT. I have done some research to see how many uh, gross blunders it does. Right. So it's a
yes, that is
numbers
why
game,
that is
right?
why
It's a
Baba says
numbers
here
game.
critical discrim. You use critical
Yeah,
discrimination. You don't believe that.
yeah.
It
You
is
don't
just
believe anything. Yeah,
yeah, it's
it's a
just
quick.
there to give us a, it's up to you to use your practical life example and critical discrimination and common sense to figure out what is true and what is false. Yes.
Correct.
Hey, Baba.
In fact, 10 years or 15 years back, I think Google was a much better reliable source than ChatGPT today. And just bear with me while I justify my logic. 10 years back, we had probably 1,000th of the content available on the web that we have today. 1,000, or probably it'll be 100,000. I don't know, right? We had very, very little content, but each of the content went through a pair of eyes, went through Viveka, went through Vairagya. I mean, not Vairagya, went through Viveka for sure. Somebody applied their mind and put out content, right? Today, what has happened is we have mindless content, and it's very easy to create swayable content that is designed to sway opinion in one side or the other, or make one particular idea more prominent. It's very easy to do that today in the world, right? Thanks to pervasiveness of technology and the price plunging for availability of technology, right? So it's easy to put servers up. It's easy to get devices, so on and so forth. So today we are at greater risk of relying on wrong inferences that come from technology than ever before. So be on your guard, though you're tempted to use all these tools at your command to use AI in so many options, right? So anyway, that's a small distraction. But coming back to dogmas and creeds personally, it could be things that are beyond religion but linked to religion, right? So you astrology, right? Astrology is one aspect many people get completely involved in, to a point where that becomes their guide to life. There are people, of course, I like astrology, that you can even bring numerology and so on and so forth, right? Then there are also cultish behavior led by a master, right? There could be examples of that. There could be examples of locally created communities and groups that one strongly identifies, to a point of losing sight of true values, right? So those, it could be linguistic, it could be tribalistic, or it could be, as I said, family and birth-related communities, caste, and so on, right? So all of these are probably examples of dogmas and creeds, according to me, right? Just a thought.
Yeah, dogmas and creeds are basically very relative, as you rightly said, based on geography, culture, location, tribe, community, religion, and so on and so forth. So I think that not all dogmas and creeds are false. They are just a tool. One can call it like a spiritual or material tool to, of course, ultimate goal in life is to answer this question, who am I, or to dissolve the ego, manonash. So the dogmas and creeds were there for a purpose, but then they get obsolete depending on the time period and so on. So it's a very huge topic one can discuss. Hey, Baba.
Uh, yeah, let's continue. Yeah.
Yeah. Need for putting theory into practice. When a person gives up uncritically accepted dogmas and creeds in favor of views and doctrines to which he has devoted thought, there, there is a certain amount of advance info in insofar as his mind has now begun to think and critically examine its beliefs. Very often, however, the newly held beliefs are seen to lack of favor and enthusiasm that characterized allegancy to dogmas and creeds. If these newly held beliefs lack motivate power, they belong only to the superficial aspect of life, and they hang loosely upon the person like an overcoat. The mind has been
Emancipated.
emancipated from the domination of uncultured emotion. But this is often achieved by sacrificing the cooperation of the art. If the result of critical thought are to be spiritually fruitful, these results must again invade and recapture the heart so as to enlist its cooperative functioning.
If you pause a minute
Yes,
there.
sir.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that so there's an importance for putting theory into practice, and that's been said multiple times. And also, the starting point is to critically examine. So, Viveka, use of Viveka to critically examine. And I think we can relate to that, right? So, Mahu was talking about how she questioned the practices of religion. And that's just the starting point, right? So you start saying, hey, why am I doing this prayer? Hey, why am I doing uh, fasting? What is the purpose of life? And so on, right? So critical thinking starts the process, and then you start removing these allegiances and start putting the new realizations and the new discoveries that you make into practice, right? That's the point that's being made. But more importantly, the role of the heart should not be minimized. The heart has to have its functioning and importance. And to use Baba's phraseology, you have to say heart so as to enlist its cooperative functioning. So you have to let the heart invade and recapture. It's amazing, right? So let's go to the last two paragraphs.
In other, in other words, the ideas that have been accepted after critical examination must again be released into active life if they are to yield their full benefit. In the process of practical living, they often undergo a healthy transformation and become more soundly interwoven with the very fabric of life. The transition for, sorry, missed the headline. Critical and creative thinking balances mind and heart. The transition from external conformity, Sharia or Karma Kanda, to the life of inner reality, Tarikat or Adhyatma Marga, uh, involves two steps. One, um, freeing the mind from the inertia of uncritical acceptance based upon blind imitation and steering uh, it to critical thinking. And Second, bringing the result of critical and discriminative thinking into practical life in order to be spiritually fruitful. Thinking must be not only critical but creative. Critical and creative thinking leads to spiritual separation by cultivating those qualities that contribute towards the perfection and balancing of the mind and art and the release of unfettered divine life.
Jai Baba. So Kaba seems to be on hold. Maybe he's got a call. But this is exactly what he was talking about a few minutes back, thinking it came in another part of discourses. So it is the same chapter, critical and creative thinking. So what are the steps? First step is questioning. So again, though it's repetitive, it's like first, now let's say you are used to doing a certain prayer in a particular. Let's take a ritual. You do a homa, right? In Hinduism, there's a lot of importance given to a homa, which is a fire ritual, right? So you bring elaborate things, then you create a fire, then you offer all the into the fire and so on, right? So one is first start thinking, why am I doing this? What is the end goal of this? And so on and so forth. The second is from that, what came out of that thinking needs to be uh, uh, brought into life. So let's say you learn from that process that this is a process of sacrifice. So you're offering all those things to the representation of God in the fire form, and in that there is symbolism for each of the offerings that you're making, and those are things that should happen to you in your life, right? So once you discover that this is merely symbology, this is merely a ritual helping you to do something else in your real life, you have to bring that something else into your real life and practice it in day-to-day living. And those are the two steps that uh, Baba is talking about here. So critical and creative thinking. Yeah. So which is the point Kama made. Anything else before we wrap up? Thank you so much for your reading, Shekhar. We are almost out
Jai
of
Baba.
time, so it doesn't make sense reading another topic. So if we don't have any other comments or questions, we can wrap up at this time. Ashok, what happened to you? You're on the move or something? Because you've been silent.
Maybe
Okay,
he stepped
so
away.
yes, possible. So anyway, have a good one. Thank you so much for joining today. Have a blessed rest of Sunday and a great week ahead. And may Baba be with you. Thank you very much. Avtar
Thank
Meher
you.
Thank you.
Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher
Avatar
Baba.
Meh Baba Ki Jai.
Jai.